my god, the trees are alive! What's up, horror fam? Steven aka Bojangles here, and by the end of this video, you're going to learn 10 things you never knew before about the Evil Dead. The Evil Dead follows this group of young folks as they decide to visit a cabin in the woods. We all know where this is going, but they want to party down! Yeah! Sounds like a good strategy, right? Well, until this happens and partying down suddenly looks like exploring a spooky cellar. Looks like a great time to me! And then they find this tape recorder and it's no longer a horror movie again. Now we can party our faces off! Just kidding. There's no music on the tape recorder. It's just some dude reciting Kandarian text. Sounds like a blast! Exactly what I'd want to do in an isolated cabin with my girlfriend. And then this total dick has the nerve to get upset when the only one of them with common sense tells them to turn the recorder off.
Scott, you knew not to play that. I mean, come on, you knew it was upsetting you. You just don't know when you're taking something too far. Hey, don't give me that. You were playing it too. You could have shut it off. I mean, big deal. She's nuts.
Yep, it's confirmed. There's no help for these people, so we may as well get started. Number 1, Cellar Dweller. Speaking of the spooky cellar, you may be surprised to know that the cabin didn't actually have a cellar. Instead, all of the cellar scenes were actually filmed in Michigan.
The Tappert family at that time owned a farm south of Marshall. We shot the basement stuff and some of the graveyard things there.
But to accomplish scenes like this, a shallow hole was dug out beneath the cabin. Unfortunately for actress Ellen Sandweiss, she has some painful stories about that cellar door.
When I flung myself back, the first time I did it, I smacked my head on the edge and didn't make it in the hole, and had to do it about 4 more times until I actually made it through the opening.
Now, let's watch a concussion in real time. Number 2, Evil Party. The characters didn't get to party, but the cast sure as hell did.
Some people say that you guys got incredibly high for some of the scenes in the first Evil Dead. True or false?
Alright, I want to hear what you think, horror fam. Is this true or false? Leave a comment now and let me know what you think. I'll wait on you. Alright, let's find out.
We did in fact smoke marijuana because we had heard in the famous Jack Nicholson 5 Easy Pieces, Easy Rider.
Easy Rider.
That he smoked like 47 joints before he shot that scene. And we thought, well, if he can go on to become a very famous, notable actor, we can do the same thing.
But they weren't ready for that southern smoke, baby.
Well, we also found out that the weed in Tennessee was pretty good, apparently.
Yeah.
So, how'd it work out for them?
And so we did not really film the scene successfully.
Yeah.
Everything kind of went into stereo, but I did discern voices of the crew going, this was a really bad idea, I think. So we filmed most of it over again.
And weed wasn't the only thing they got their hands on.
We were shooting in the Bible Belt, so we didn't have a lot of options, and we couldn't buy alcohol anywhere, so we were happy to have a little moonshine.
Apart from getting drunk, they also found another use for the moonshine.
We would throw it on the fire just before we started filming, so in scenes where the fire is looking particularly good, it means it's been, given a burst of moonshine before we shot.
Damn. I wonder what moonshine farts could do. Number 3, Nasty Sammy. Our UK horror fam almost didn't get to see The Evil Dead at all on home video.
My initial kind of knowledge of the film was that it was like this bad, evil film, that it was a video nasty.
You see, video nasties became prevalent in the early 80s in the UK. Basically, cut films were being shown in theaters so they could achieve certain ratings by the BBFC. However, there was no classification system for home video releases, so the distributors were releasing uncut versions on VHS. As you can imagine, this shit backfired, and the Evil Dead was caught up in the backlash.
I think even Sam had to go to Leeds Crown Court to kind of defend the film in court.
In order for the Evil Dead to get a home video release, massive cuts were made to the film.
This doesn't deserve to be seen in this way. Even though it is kind of intense and gory, it shouldn't be lumped in with Faces of Death and I Spit on Your Grave, you know.
The UK didn't see an uncut version until 2001.
The reason that Sam Raimi made Evil Dead 2 funny was because he was put on trial in England. It's insane. I mean, we've come so far. But can you imagine that, going to jail for making Evil Dead?
Ah, stop being a bunch of Cheryls, guys. Number 4, Evil Grounds. The cabin used in the film has a very horrific past.
Because there is, in fact, a little-known horror story that takes place in the cabin that we shot Evil Dead in.
Sounds cozy.
This cabin was built about 100 years ago. And the man who built it died maybe a week after he built the place. And it's located in this valley surrounded by these mountains that have an incredible amount of iron ore in them. So that during thunderstorms, most of the lightning bolts are attracted to this valley. So it's really an incredible thing to see when you're there during a storm. Well, no one lived in this cabin for the next 20 years. And it was probably around 1910 or so when a family of 3 moved into the place. A mother, daughter, and a grandmother. So really 3 generations of women. One night during a thunderstorm, this little girl woke up and she was scared by all the lightning happening around the cabin. So she ran into her mother's room, and pulling back the covers to climb into bed with her, she found that her mother was dead. Well, she was so frightened she ran screaming into her grandmother's room, and somehow that same evening she had died also during the night. And they still don't really know why both of these women would simultaneously die in this place. Well, the little girl ran out into the storm about 4 miles to the nearest farmhouse through this raging thunderstorm out through the night, and they found her screaming, banging on their doors, and they brought her inside and they got the story from her. The people at the farmhouse raised this little girl. She had never been the same since, and during thunderstorms, she would oftentimes wander off from this cabin, and they would find her wandering around in the woods. Well, here's where we come into the story. The Tennessee Film Commission said, yes, we've got this one cabin that's the cows have knocked down, it's full of dung, but you can use it. But it's haunted. We said, well, that sounds fun. So we went there. As we were shooting, the fella from this farm came by, and he told us the story of exactly what happened and how his folks had taken in this little girl who is now a very old woman, and that because there had been this thunderstorm the night before, he was looking for this woman because it's possible she had returned to this cabin. And as far as we know, they never found the woman while we were down there shooting, and she could still be roaming those woods around Morristown, Tennessee.
Number 5, 4 years of evil. Filming The Evil Dead was a long process.
First Evil Dead, we stopped and started 4 and 5 times over a 4-year period to make the movie.
But why did it take so long for them to make?
Was we would wait, sometimes get more money, shoot a little more, get more money, and continue on.
As a matter of fact, Raimi said this was the most difficult aspect of making the film.
The most difficult thing about making the film was when we'd reach stretches where we would run out of money and having to stop for 3 months, whatever we're doing, and put on our suits again and get our briefcases out, our matching briefcases, and cut our hair short and shave and look presentable again and go around knocking on doors asking for more money.
Could you imagine working on a badass flick like The Evil Dead and having to stop on the reg to go beg to some investors?
Oh God, I'm so bored! Somebody help me!
Number 6, The Freezing Dead. The movie was originally meant to be shot in Michigan, but the weather wasn't projected to be ideal.
We were actually supposed to film this movie in Detroit, in the Michigan area, because that's where we were all from, and it would have been easier to do in terms of budget. But the weathermen back then predicted that it was going to be a horrible winter and a horrible fall, meaning cold. So they decided to go south a couple of states, and they found this cabin in Morristown, Tennessee.
And anyone who's ever relied on the weather forecast knows exactly how this is going to go.
It was the coldest winter on record in Tennessee that winter, and one of the warmest in Michigan. We left Michigan because we were afraid it was going to be cold. So it was a good decision on everyone's part.
And it gets worse.
And we were there to experience it in a cabin that actually had no heat, no running water, no bathroom.
No electricity.
Yeah.
And no bra.
So now you got
no
brassieres.
I never leave home without my bra.
Was that it was very challenging, very difficult.
It was so challenging for Raimi that he was actually ready to die.
It was so cold that I couldn't stand the slow torture of freezing to death so slowly. So I actually crawled outside and laid down to die in the cold. But Rob, the poor bastard, covered me with a blanket, and here I am today.
Number 7, Blinging the Dead. Bruce Campbell totally hated the necklace that he gave to Linda.
That necklace was one of the crappiest pieces of jewelry I think I've ever seen in my life.
And Betsy Baker agrees.
They said it was horrible, it was a terrible gift. What would you think? Would you like something like that? Or?
I would probably take it, and after the fine particles of silver had gotten and, were in my hand, I would gently give it back to that person.
The necklace was so cheap that they had to spray paint it.
And we noticed there were flickers of silver coming off in my hand, which meant it was a fine quality, excellent piece of jewelry. So, but they kept spraying it because the fine quality particles of silver kept falling off, so yeah.
But the necklace was important because originally it was going to be what destroyed the Necronomicon.
And I'm like, Sam, that's the ugliest piece of jewelry I've ever seen. He's like, shut up, it's gonna be in the movie. He wanted, when the morning sun came in through the window as Ash is struggling mightily to defeat these evil dead, he was gonna take the sunlight and refract it through Linda's magnifying glass necklace and burn the Book of the Dead. For whatever reason, that shtick didn't work, so we didn't use it, so we were just stuck with an ugly necklace.
I know I'll never take my necklace off. Number 8, Evil Blood. There was so much blood used while making the film that it became a serious problem for everyone involved.
And I couldn't get my clothes off. I had so much fake blood on me. Every time I'd pull to get my sleeve off, I'd take a shank of hair with it. So it was like sandpaper.
Ouch.
We had this rented white pickup truck, so I sat in the back of the pickup truck, looking like Charles Manson, basically, covered from head to toe. On a Sunday morning, as people are coming out to go to church, I'm going, hi, good morning, good morning.
Could you imagine this guy waving at you? It would be like passing by Sally from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I walked right into the bathroom, into the shower, and just with all my clothes on, because I had to melt the fake blood off of me.
And it seems like everyone has a story about trying to get the blood off.
And the blood, the sticky blood would almost kind of freeze and become more sticky.
Well,
and you couldn't wash it off.
Now imagine when you have to put your finger in someone else's eyeball.
You've got to put the contacts in the actress's eyes because you're the responsible one, Bruce. So he was given that chore. But there was no water. There was nothing in this cabin we were working in. There was only a coffee pot to put instant coffee in scalding hot water. So he'd put his hands in there, kind of wash them, and then put the eyes in and out.
And Raimi got his hands dirty too. No pun intended.
The whole place eventually got covered in Caro syrup blood. And it really gets sticky because there's so much blood in the picture. And anytime you wanted to touch the camera, you had to turn on the coffee machine because we had enough water for a coffee thing and wash your hands in the scalding coffee. I remember doing that many times. It was horrible. And then grab the camera, and then you pick up something. Damn! And you get the stuff on your hands again.
Number 9, The Naked Dead. Actress Theresa Tilly was surprised when they asked her to do a little bit of nudity in the film.
But that wasn't part of the deal when I signed on to that.
They met with her and told her that it was a requirement.
After a couple weeks, they had this long meeting with me, and at first I said no, and then at second I said no, and then they said, well, we're probably going to have to get someone else.
And she had to garner a little bit of liquid courage to go through with it.
I was freaked out, and I had to drink a lot of that, moonshine to do it.
As for Sandweiss, she knew that she was getting nude, but had no idea it would end up in the actual finished product.
When it started kind of getting a little more, say, sexual in nature, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And they said, no, it'll all be long shots and there's lots of fog. Nobody will see anything. I went,
And no one gave her a heads up.
So when I actually was at the premiere and saw it for the first time, I was shocked.
Horrified.
Shocked and horrified.
But it gets even worse.
And my parents were there.
Could you imagine how shocked you'd be? I mean, that'd be like more shocking than the infamous tree scene itself. Number 10, Evil Thieves. So you're shooting an independent movie with your friends. You're poor, you're cold, you're starving, you're exhausted. You're Brendan Fraser. Okay, so you're not Brendan Fraser. But how could things possibly get worse?
Some of the men took the duty of who would watch the cabin at night. Because what's funny is in the rural part of Tennessee where we were, here we went home for lunch every day, or had it brought to us sometimes. But when we had to leave, we had a 16mm camera sitting there, a Nagra recorder. These are all fairly expensive pieces of equipment. And then we had a toolbox. And we came back after filming, after going back for a lunch break, all the tools were gone.
But it could have been worse. You see, thieves aren't exactly known for being smarter than a common garden slug.
The camera was untouched. The tape recorder was untouched. All the film equipment was untouched because they probably went, what's that do? Well, I don't know, but there's a skill saw over there. Hey, there's a hammer I can use. So they stole all the regular tools, and we were obviously being watched from the hills. We would look up. One night we saw two guys squatting up in the hills who wouldn't say anything, and they would disappear if we would go to approach them. So we were being watched, and we would take turns who would stay over in the cabin after filming that night to protect it.
I fucking hate trees.